Not to get into the beauties of editing.
I get to edit. I get to take in and out, in and out. You're out. If you don't like, you're out. The frustration came from working on this thinking system for so long, but not having a practical application that really worked. I mean, there are practical applications, but not a lot of people go, let's go change our value system and look at issues from multiple perspectives, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Right? I mean, but if you go, here's a movie or here's something, I mean, they go, oh, thanks, and they watch it. I mean, it's no work for them. But the real work takes work. And a lot of people won't do that until they reach a certain time where they go, okay, I have to do that. I'm making the same mistake over and over again, and I have to change my belief system in a sense, because that's the only thing we have control over. And I don't think there's a lot of methodologies to do that, either in the educational forms of online or offline in terms of school. The tools aren't there, and that's what I've been working on, but it drove me crazy. Like, it literally drove me crazy, because I had to take my whole belief system, take it out, reshuffle it, and continually reorder it on these harmonic patternings, but always sort of missing or something. But that would affect my perception, which would affect my communication, which would affect my relationships, which were all sort of like, what the heck's going on with this guy? Because I hadn't found my center. I hadn't come to the point of actually knowing what I was doing or where I was, because I was still sort of evaluating. But I didn't want to evaluate in the current paradigm. I wanted to get out of that. But to get out of it, you get out of reality. And as soon as you get out of reality, you can't communicate anymore, because you don't have a shared place of who are you? Well, you're just walking around crazy, playing with cards.
You got your own dream instead of the shared one. That's all. And walked away when they only had their own reference point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's unfortunately. But then later on, it's called genius, because whatever it is that they discovered was assimilated into the greater dream. Right? But at the time, everyone's like, whoa. Everyone looks at you like, whoa. He's gone funny. Put him in the room. Drag him up.
Which has happened. Metaphorically and not so metaphorically.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to mess with people's survival, right? You just don't want to mess with it. And if that's their psychological sense of life and reality, then you just don't want to go there either, because, my God, it gets ugly when you get survival in there. I mean, that's really when we become so apparently just, woke. It's frightening, if you threaten somebody's psychological experience, that's even just as bad as their physical, taking away their home or their. So that's probably what you ran up against too. If you start playing with people's psyche of things, it gets dangerous. Right? We're just with people, they don't want to be that, so they immediately reject it. But you're talking about a thinking system. You're talking about creating an education that allows people to become multifaceted in their viewpoint, and that's something that you can't necessarily. I think maybe that's something you can't necessarily force, or you can't necessarily. It's funny because you're trying to teach it within the one system of thought, that it isn't about that thinking. So I can see the problem that you run up against deeply. Trying to teach a system of expansion in a system that's only one view or one path of thinking or being or walking. So it's exciting that just through your own experience as Ian Dankers, Dankers. It doesn't matter. The next list himself and all of the wonderment. It's through your own experience. You offer. I think through even just being with you and knowing you is probably the first step, because it's actually offering these sort of more sophisticated and expansive viewpoints of reality, and especially of dealing with communities and problems and people and whatnot. It's a really beautiful thing. Yeah? Just who you are.
This is good. Go around and let's talk about me.
No, it's true. I mean, because you have been trying to create something for people, but it's yourself that you're sort of mirroring to people, right? It's like you are showing them how you experience existence, and in doing so, try to help them do the same, right? In whatever way. And then you've also been trying, obviously quite madly, to sort of try to externalize that into an actual physical table or a physical platform, a physical government of some sort that people can follow, and for their own expansion, and for the better communities, and so we're not raping and destroying each other or the world. Although, yeah, that's been I think the problem for most prophets.
Hey, don't be saying that.
But prophets being just someone who stood up and spoke their heart, that's all. Not someone that people, I don't think, I think people that just put out themselves out there, all the great mystics that stood up and said, wow, and offered something, not necessarily they weren't given necessarily the beautiful reception, the compassion and openness and the capability of sophisticated thinking really, fortunately it wasn't given.